Good morning, Tallahassee. It's time to wake up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hajavandi and Corey Clark.
Welcome on into the program. Thursday edition of Wake Up War Chant brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. 3 awesome locations over in the Collegetown District. You know them by now. Central, Madison Social, and Township. Go ahead, check them on out. You won't be disappointed. Joining us, as always, Corey Clark. He's got second billing on the show, but he's number one in your guys' hearts. Corey, how are you?
I'm good, buddy. How are you doing?
Doing well, man. Doing well. I was really excited at about noon. Felt good. Felt good yesterday around noontime. Rolled out of bed. Don't tell the boss. I'm like, all right, I'm going to watch the Noles beat Louisville, move up the seed level. Maybe it'll be a 6 seed, go beat Virginia later on Thursday. Didn't work out. Didn't work out the way I kind of had it planned in my head. Didn't work out.
I mean, it was close. It was close there for, the first, 10 minutes of the game?
Yeah, I guess so. Take the good with the bad, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, what was the final score on that? 82-74, Louisville wins?
Yeah, Florida State lost by 8.
Which was a victory, I guess. I don't know. I mean, the whole time I'm thinking we've sat here for the last week and, we've cited this website. We've referred to this person and all indications are, Florida State is not a bubble team according to anybody outside of Tallahassee. Joe Lunardi's not talking about them being a bubble team. I don't think Jerry Palm is talking about Florida State being a bubble team. They seem to be firmly into the field of 68, but when you're down 24, 6, 20, what was the largest deficit of the day?
26, my man. 26 in the second half.
Yeah, so when you're down by that much, you're thinking, well, shoot, this is the probably absolute worst impression to make on the committee before the rubber meets the road. But they were able to kind of fight back and make it, I guess, a good loss. There's no such thing at this point of the season. But ultimately, it's nowhere near as hideous of a loss as it could have been.
Well, no, they didn't lose by 50, so that was nice. And it looked for a while like that was where it was. That's where it was heading because Florida State looked just lost and completely rudderless on offense. Couldn't get any stops on defense, and then they found a little something. Savoy knocked down a couple threes. Kofor went crazy there for about 2 minutes. Yeah. And they played well in the final 10 minutes. Now it was too late to make a difference, and that doesn't. This is Division I college athletics. It's big-time basketball. You don't get a pat on the back just for trying hard and not losing by 40. But I did think they played much better. They showed a little resolve and a little fight to come back like that. Got actually a couple bad calls, or maybe it could have been closer. And so, assuming they're in the tournament, which, like you said, there's nobody that even has them on the bubble. None of the people that matter anyway, the people that do this for a living and break down RPIs and BPIs and blah, blah, blahs and quadrant 1 wins and quadrant 2 wins. Anybody that breaks all that stuff down for a living doesn't really even have Florida State on the bubble. So I think Florida State fans should rest easy knowing that they're solidly in the tournament. But again, you wonder, why does this team go through these kind of stretches where they just look completely lost on both ends of the court? Does he play too many guys? So it's hard to get a rhythm. That team, that 5 that made a comeback in the second half, well, they made the comeback because they were on the floor together for so long. I mean, they played a long time together in that stretch and played well together. I just feel like sometimes in the first half, to limit minutes, maybe Leonard makes substitutions he doesn't need to make that end up hurting the flow of the game, hurting the flow for the team, and sometimes they can't recover. And in that first half, they could not recover. Savoy hit the 3 to put them up by 3 and got fouled. He missed the free throw naturally to put them up 17-14 with like 11 minutes left. And then they hit 2 baskets the rest of the half in the final 12 minutes. That's nuts. That's just bad basketball. And they're too good a team, too skilled offensively to look that bad for that long a stretch. And they just kind of lost their poise. And that happens a lot. And they're a young team, so I guess that's what happens. But one team looked like they were playing desperately to get in the NCAA tournament. The other team looked like they were just trying to get home.
Yeah, and again, we always talk about the depth that this team has and how it's always a new guy every single day, it seems like, in terms of stepping up. But at the end of the day, Terrence Mann, we feel, is the best player on this basketball team, but he has not been playing anywhere near the caliber of being the best player on this team of late.
No, he was pretty awful on Wednesday. He was a minus 18 in 20 minutes. And for the people that don't know, they keep track of what the score is while you're in the game. So did your team outscore the team by 9 points while you were in the game? Did you get outscored by 9 points? Well, while Terrence Mann was on the floor for Florida State in his 21 minutes on Wednesday, Florida State was outscored by 18 points. That's just awful. He is too good a player to be. And at the end, he didn't play again after he made 2 straight drives in the second half, driving into the teeth of his own, throwing his hands up as if he's been, punched in the stomach. The ball gets ripped out and leads to a dunk on the other end, and Ham didn't play him again. And he shouldn't have. He was just not good. He had a couple of nice plays, but overall he just wasn't good. And I would correct you now and say that I think we have enough data over the last 3 weeks or so to say Trent Forrest is now the best player on this team. Not through the course of the season. He didn't have the best season, but he is now, the way he's playing and the way he is health-wise, he's the best player on this team right now.
Yeah, Kofor was knocking down threes. I think at one point, had 9 points in a row for Florida State, and then Trent had the ball, and then Trent goes into this crazy drive to the rack, and you're just like, what? Just kick it out to Phil. Like, what are you doing? But he got the bucket to go, and again, you're talking about, Trent needs to lock himself into the gym over the offseason and figure out maybe like a perimeter game, some jump shot action. But, man, when he's got his mind on getting to the hole, he gets there, and he's scoring more often than not. 6 of 8 from the floor yesterday, 2 of 3 from the line, had a 14 points, which ties a team high along with Savoy, which is crazy. You figured Phil Kofor, with the way he went off, would have led the team. But I don't know. Does that change anything? Is Florida State any different of a team if Trent Forrest is the best player on the court for them as opposed to Terrence Mann? No, not this year. I think next year, though, I think you're seeing – Terrence Mann is what he is. He's a junior. He's played 100 games now in his career. He is what he is. He's a nice role player and a good role player. I don't mean that again as a pejorative. He's a role player that can get you 12-6, 13-6. He's not – Trent Forrest is a guy that you've seen over this last 3 weeks. Man, he is a difference maker. And, he doesn't start I think C.J. Walker's a little banged up with his knee, but they still start him, and he gives them absolutely nothing. M.J. Walker has given them absolutely nothing lately. So Trent Forrest has got to play a ton of minutes. And, when they make their rallies, when they make their runs against any of these teams, number 3 is always on the floor. And I think looking ahead to next year, because this season is this season, this was supposed to be rebuilding stopgap year. So for them to probably be in the tournament is a nice accomplishment. But when you look ahead to next season and you have essentially the whole team coming back, well, where's the improvement going to be, I think, is what people might ask themselves. And I just think Trent Forrest is going to turn into one of those guys that's one of the best players in the conference. He's going to be a guy that can take over games, and not necessarily just a guy that goes and gets you 25, obviously, but can get you 14, 8, and 6. It can play the best defense of anybody on the floor. That's the kind of guy he can be over the next 2 years, and I think that would be pretty exciting for Florida State fans to see how good he's gotten. And couple him along with Obiagu and Kabengele, who I think is going to be really good by the time he's done. There's the future's pretty bright. There's some really nice pieces, but you also wonder, I know looking ahead to the end of this year, what's the ceiling even if they get in the tournament? 1 win, maybe 2 if they hit their shots. Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day that this is, we talked about this is a bubble team, or this is a team that you just hope to get into the tournament. So when you get there, you hope you win a game or 2, and then I don't know. I mean, that goes into the whole thing of, do you keep Leonard Hamilton then, right? Because I don't know if that's the correct pivot in this conversation. But if this is a team that you're constantly talking about just make it to the dance, well, I mean, that's not obviously setting the bar to winning national championships. But this is not investment. The investment's not there to win championships. So I think. I don't know, 90% of Florida State fans, would be happy at the end of the day to make it to the second week of the tournament. Maybe not in the moment, but when you simmer down and kind of let everything settle. I mean, that's going to be the ceiling for this team. And I don't know. I mean, I don't want to demand more because I'm not willing to pay the money to the school to invest more into the basketball program. But I don't know. I would not be upset if they go to the tournament, win 2 games, and then that's it.
Well, I don't think anybody would. I mean, I think that would be to get to the Sweet 16 would be an incredible accomplishment. To be honest with you, man, I think getting to the tournament is a really nice accomplishment. Now, we might say, well, that says all you need to say about the standard at Florida State. Well, yeah, kind of. But it also says, how much he lost. He essentially lost, XRM is in the league now. He lost 3 guys that have played in the NBA this year. He lost 5 players overall, including Ojo and Jarquez Smith, off the, probably the second best team in school history, record-wise anyway. I mean, that was a really good team. They lost a ton of talent. And for them to come back and be a tournament team, we assume, unless Joe Lunardi is just lying to our faces, which I wouldn't, that would surprise me. That guy looked kind of smarmy, doesn't he? He could be lying to all of us.
No, he's a good guy.
But I think that's an accomplishment. I think next year is when you look at it and go, okay, man, now these things shouldn't happen that often where they lose to a Wake because they just don't look ready to play, or they lose to this team, or they get down by 26. That stuff should kind of be in the rear view next year because you're going to have so much experience, so many, frankly, talented guys. In fact, I was thinking about this today on my drive up to Buford, Georgia. Thinking about last night about they might have too many good guys. And that could be a detriment when you feel like you have to play 12 guys. Again, it might be hard for some of these guys to get in a rhythm because they don't play enough.
I mean, C.J. Walker's been absolutely non-existent of late. I mean, you talk about MJ Walker. The Walkers are just not doing anything. And these are guys that I think at the midway point of the season you felt were close to taking a step and becoming, I don't want to say difference makers, but at least, players that were going to show some sort of all-conference potential. And then here they're now, not doing anything. So maybe that is part of the problem here, trying to get everybody on the court and trying to figure out the right mix as they continue to do so. 82-74, the final from yesterday. One other thing I wanted to touch on, Corey. I don't know if you're watching the post-game analysis in the immediate aftermath of the game, but it was Adnan Virk, Dallin Cuff, and Tom Crean. Tom Crean was quite beside himself that Florida State declined to foul after, I think it was, I don't know if it was after a missed free throw or after a missed possession. I think it was maybe Phil Kofer missed a three-pointer. I'm looking at the play-by-play.
I think it was like with 59 seconds left or 55, Louisville got the ball up 8 and Florida State didn't foul.
Right, yeah, it was 8-point game and with a minute left. I don't know. I wasn't too, beside myself about it. But was that something you thought was bizarre?
Oh, I definitely thought it was bizarre. It didn't make any sense to me that would have happened. It made zero sense that you wouldn't foul right there. But did it matter? You foul. They make. I don't know if Leonard was just trying to make the score. Hey, committee, if you're really somehow on the fence about us, we didn't lose by 16, we lost by 8. I don't know if that was the thinking or trying to get a steal. And that honestly didn't bother me as much. Because 8 points with 55 seconds left, they got all their free throw shooters in the game. Odds are they're going to make the free throws, and you're going to be down 10, and then the game's over anyway. So maybe get a stop, hit a 3. They basically were conceding with 50 seconds left. My biggest problem strategy-wise, I know we got to go to break, is they were making that run. They had cut it down to 6 or 8 under 2 minutes, and the Mahmoud kid from Louisville caught 2 straight inbound passes with Trip Forrest almost getting steals. And instead of fouling him, he backed off and let him pass it, and the guy's a 46% free throw shooter. It would be like Obiagu catching an inbounds pass when Florida State's up 8 with 50 seconds left, or a minute 50 left, and the other team not fouling. It just doesn't make any sense from a basketball IQ perspective. It just doesn't make any sense. They gave you a chance to foul the worst free throw shooter on the floor in a 1-on-1 opportunity twice, only down by 8, and with that team completely tight, really tight, because you'd made this great comeback and you didn't take it. That was bizarre to me that they should have been told, and maybe they were and just didn't do it. If Mahmoud catches the ball, foul him. And they let him get away with it twice and didn't foul him.
Now it's wait and see. Sunday, Selection Sunday, we'll see if Florida State makes the field and where they'll be headed off to. Fingers crossed it won't be Boise or Wichita or anywhere, parts unknown that we don't want to go to. But we'll take it any way we can get it, though, at the end of the day, ultimately. I said we. Aren't you guys happy I'm making progress? He's Corey Maslin. We'll be right back after this. It's Wake Up War Chant on ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee.
WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source, knows now is a time of true excitement for Nole fans everywhere. That's why WarChant.com is especially proud to announce its newest team member, senior writer Corey Clark. Combine Corey's expertise with owner Gene Williams and managing editor Ira Schafel, and WarChant.com boasts nearly 50 years of experience covering the team you love. It's Taggart time in Tallahassee, and that means now is the perfect time to sign up for your free 30-day trial. From National Signing Day to March Madness, WarChant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
Welcome on back to the program. I'm Aslan. He is Corey Clark. This is Wake Up War Chant on this Thursday. Thanks so much for being here. We're brought to you by For the Table Hospitality, as always. 3 great locations over in the College Town District, Central, Madison Social, Township. Check them on out. You shan't be disappointed. I hope not, at least. And maybe I'll take a Tinder date there, and then we can talk about it next week on Tinder Thursdays. But until
Tinder Tuesdays sounds better.
Tinder Tuesday, that's where you want to be?
Yeah, Tinder Tuesday sounds better. Plus, it's closer to the weekend. I assume you're going to go on the weekend. That's what you need to do.
Fresher. It'll be fresh in the mind and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Without further ado, though, let's just go ahead. You know what that means. You know what that means.
Oh, yeah.
We're almost done, folks. We're almost done. And, listen, I don't want to be apologetic. I don't know how much of it is the fact that I showed up late. I got here in February, so that was, I don't know, a full month. 2 months to get over it for everybody. And I'm over it. I'm moving along. There's a lot of people who want to know more about what's going on with Jimbo Fisher. We're giving the people what they want. And the final chapters of the Jimbo Chronicles are coming down on War Chant this week. Corey went first. Corey got to do the good, or the rise. Ira will be dropping the slide. And then ultimately, I don't know if Gene or Ira will be doing the fall. Basically, it's this will be, I guess, Ira's going to focus kind of on what happened in the aftermath of the national championship game. And then the final segment, which will drop Friday, I'm assuming will be probably everything that happened subsequently to that, or maybe just last year in terms of everything falling apart. Is that your understanding of things, Corey?
Yeah, I think so. Sure. I was just told to write how he turned it around, and I thought he did. I thought I did. Gave a few reasons why that might have happened, and I know Ira's going to write about, or has written about, where it went wrong and what happened. I will say this. I know, maybe people are ready to move on. I'm sure people are ready to move on. Number one, it's interesting, and I think people have to understand how unique it is what just happened at Florida State. The fact that, it wasn't that long ago you just won 29 straight games, and you had the recruiting thing locked up. You were getting almost anybody you wanted. You had what people thought was the next Nick Saban. You had a program that you thought was lined up for success for a decade. And within 3 years, they went 5-6 and lost 35-3 to Boston College in a season. How did that happen? I think there's a reason. I think that's a story. I think that's a really interesting story, because I can't recall another college football program in my lifetime having that kind of a resurgence and then falling apart. And I shouldn't say falling apart, but losing 12 out of
falling apart is pretty accurate. Falling apart is pretty accurate.
That was really bizarre how that happened, and it seemed to happen so quickly.
This is my thing, and then maybe we'll try to pivot away from it. I mean, wasn't the general prevailing wisdom after Pasadena that, this was it? This was the new normal. This thing was rolling again. I mean, maybe not, 14-0 every single season, but, these inexplicable, these Boston College losses, losing to North Carolina State, that was over. Was that not the thought walking out of there, on this, January 6th or whatever it was, 2014? This thing is, it's this Alabama aura, this mystique or whatever, it's in Tallahassee as well.
Yeah, and you didn't think it was just a Jameis Winston specific thing, because that team was so good regardless of the quarterback. Now, he put it over the top, but you thought that it was going to be, okay, man, he's just loading up this program with unbelievable players everywhere. He's evaluating, he's developing, he's recruiting, he's doing everything perfectly to set this thing up for 10 years. And again, because he came from the Saban tree. And Saban did that at Alabama. He set it up where they're great every year. So you thought, okay, if he's going to take all the stuff he learned from Nick Saban, they're going to, whatever those levels of success are, his pyramid of success, to steal from John Wooden, whatever Nick Saban's is, Jimbo's got Jimbo's got the playbook. Yeah. He's got the blueprint, and he's going to do it. And no, he wasn't even close. Those losses started returning as soon as Jameis left. And then it got to the point where the thing was so tenuous that the starting quarterback could go down in the first game, and you're 3-6, and you have to reschedule a game against a Sun Belt team just to get bowl eligible. I wouldn't have. It's, I know we lived it. We went through it. But think about that when I walked out of that Rose Bowl stadium in 2014. I couldn't have even fathomed that 3 years later, 3.5 years later, the program would be 3-6, and it will have just lost to Boston College 35-3. That would have been impossible to comprehend with what he had done. And it happened so quickly. It wasn't slow. It wasn't a slow decline. It happened really fast. And yeah, I think that's a story. It's one of the more unique 8-year stretches in the history of college football for a coach. To take over for Bobby Bowden, one of arguably, well, not arguably, one of the best college football coaches of all time, the builder of the program, to take over for him, a legend, turn the program back into a national power, and then watch it slip into the depths it wasn't even on Bowden's worst teams. Also, all within a decade. I mean, that's a pretty remarkable thing. It'd be a great book, but nobody's paying us to write a book, so we go to the Jimbo Chronicles instead. Maybe we could put the Jimbo Chronicles together and make it a book.
Wouldn't be a bad idea. Jimbo Chronicles. Okay, let's pivot away. New guy, Willie Taggart. Can't wait to talk to Willie. It's going to be awesome. I can see the gleam in his eye when I see him in photos on the internet. Can't wait to talk to Willie. Willie spoke to David Hale of ESPN.com the other day, it looks like. We don't know actually when. Who knows when it was, right? Part of a series on ESPN.com previewing all the ACC teams. Were you able to read said article that I'm trying to reference here, Corey?
No, I was not.
Oh, okay.
I don't read ESPN, man. What are you, crazy?
All right,
fake news. Not reading that stuff.
I don't think there was anything too nothing that really bent my ear. A lot of things. He looked at the tape, obviously saw guys that weren't playing for each other, things of that nature. There was some sort of funny thing here about when you came. The question was, when you came aboard, did you say to your strength folks, come up with a plan to put 30 pounds on James Blackman? Willie says, he's gained about 13 pounds, still frail, but he's bigger than when he was before. If we continue to do that, we'll get better. I don't know if there's anything to read into that. He says, if we continue to do that, saying putting weight on James, we will get better. So I don't know if there's anything to read into that. If that guy gets better, the whole team will get better.
Well, that's natural, though, right? If your quarterback gets better, then the whole team gets better, even if he ends up being the backup. If you got a better backup quarterback, your team's probably a little bit better.
Yeah, and he said there is no depth chart. He's I guess he had some cool thing in there about, he told all these guys from the first day that his job was to bring in new players that were going to take away their jobs. And their job was to make that not happen. So things of that nature. I mean, you can check it out on ESPN.com, but I'd recommend you just stay on warchant.com. Stay tuned in. We have everything you need there. But
good plug.
Yeah, I'm trying, It's sincere, I think, right? I don't know. I mean, I just want to talk to this guy. And this is why, this isn't, people are kind of insinuating or inferring that, we're doing this for the clicks, even though this is a subscriber-based business model. So it doesn't matter if you click on it or not. If you're subscribed to the website, everything's going along fine. I think it is a very compelling story, like you mentioned, the way things happen with Jimbo. And you're ready to move on, and I'm ready to move on. But, we really can't move on until, 13 more days when spring starts and we can actually start talking. Because I don't know, this chase, I guess, is over. Looking at the internet, there was a video from Deontay Sheffield with a big dance party going on in the locker room. It seems like the chase is over. I think it's over. The mat drills, the fourth quarter drills. And we weren't able to get out there and watch, which, could be a good or a bad thing. We could sleep in a little bit or not miss our job here on the radio. But I want to talk about him. But there's not a lot to talk about right now, people. So I'm not trying to be the arrogant guy. I hope that wasn't me yelling like Stephen A. Smith. Or pardon the interruption or whatever everyone, complained about for me. But, I mean, at this juncture right now, everything is total conjecture of who we think is going to be the starting quarterback, of who we think is going to be the starting offensive line, of who we think is going to be the biggest, difference maker, whether it's the defense or offense. And, even when he is making these rare interviews with, other outlets, there's nothing really new kind of trickling out there. But I don't know. I mean, did you see any of these videos of these guys celebrating after? I don't want to be the guy to make mountains out of molehills, but I don't know if it's a good or bad thing that there was like 30 guys having a dance party in the locker room. I don't know, like the culture, we keep talking about the word culture. I don't know, is everybody on board? Because he mentioned the ESPN.com thing that, the two things that he noticed when he got there obviously was a lot of hurt. He kind of mentioned, some of the hurt was the fact that the guy who brought these guys to Tallahassee, being Fisher, was no longer there. Like, your coach is gone. And they're so totally different. I know the fans are eating this stuff up. They love it. The guys are happy, man. Corey, the guys are happy. They're smiling. They're happy. Championship. I don't know. I'm starting to subscribe to this weird theory that there's no middle ground with this. This is either, I don't want to call it like some sort of grand experiment, but either this thing is going to be fun and it's going to be awesome to experience, or it's going to be nowhere near the hope and optimism people are sitting on right now.
Well, that's kind of how it will be, right? I mean, I can't imagine it's going to be a bunch of 9-4, 10-3. I think there will be, I think it'll be more, just consistently. No 12-win seasons, no 6-win seasons, but just straight up 8 and 9 win seasons every year. That's not going to cut it at Florida State. Yeah, man, we'll see. I mean, he's 2 months into this thing. I would never think, as long as they respect the head coach, I would never think players enjoying being around each other, enjoying being around their coaches, enjoying practicing, or at least tolerating it, like it's not miserable. I can't ever imagine that being a bad thing. I just can't. As long as they respect the coach. And that's the big, I guess that's the big if, but we don't have any reason to think that they wouldn't respect him. But, you have fun. You typically, you play loose. You typically play better, most people. You just do. And if he makes them looser, if he makes it fun for them again, then, I don't know how that could be a bad thing. I don't know how a dance party could be a bad thing necessarily, as long as they're not dancing in the end zone with 4 minutes left in the game and they get 45 yards worth of penalties. I just think that he is so different. He knows he's so different. And I feel like maybe, I think he kind of feels like he knows what this team needs after what happened this past year and how miserable it was for everyone, that they need to have fun. And remember, they're supposed to have fun. It's supposed to be fun. College football is allowed to be fun. The guy at Clemson has a lot of fun. He does. And they win a lot. So you can do it that way. And I think that's what the hope is that, well, like I've said, I think Willie Taggart, they hope Willie Taggart is Florida State's Dabo, which is crazy to say, but that's the truth.
There's two people or two sort of segments of people I would love to talk to get what I think would be the best insight into how things are coming along. Let's talk about that next right here on Wake Up War Chant, ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee.
You're locked in to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Break the scale.
He's Corey Clark, senior writer for WarChant.com. I'm Aslan Hajavandi, the director of digital media for WarChant.com. This is Wake Up War Chant here on ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee. Thanks for being here. Brought to you by For the Table Hospitality and their 3 awesome locations in the College Town District, Central, Madison Social, and Township. Check them on out. Corey, it's been like a month now. We've done the show, maybe a little bit more than a month. And, me saying my actual last name is awkward, and I hate it. It pisses me off.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, don't say it then.
It's weird, but I don't want to. He's Corey Clark, and I'm like the Brazilian guy. I guess I can just say Aslan. No one's going to confuse me.
About one name. That's fine.
Yeah. But I'm mad. I'm mad at my former employers for putting me in that position to where I had to say that Hodge's name, and that sounds more natural than saying my real last name. It's kind of a bummer.
That is weird. That whole thing is a little bizarre, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I kind of understand it when you explained it, but yeah, that is kind of odd.
Yeah. All right. Enough of that. Enough of my personal life. Let's get back to it. All right. So, we don't know how different things are. We can only imagine how different things are in that locker room at Florida State. The question I kind of want to pose you, Corey, and I don't know, this is off the top of the dome here, so bear with me because obviously, my mind thoughts are a bit rough at times. Who would give you the best insight into how things were last year and how different they are now? And this is kind of stupid because one of these guys is not going to. Would you rather talk to a guy like Derwin or like a Josh Sweat, a guy who's no longer here, so they can kind of just talk freely about what it was last year? Or do you think you'd have to talk to a guy who's actually in the locker room now that might be a little bit guarded about talking about what last year was, but would be able to give you a better insight into how things are now. Because I don't like, do we have to appreciate how bad it was last year to realize what good it could be accomplishing now?
Well, the answer to that is I'd like to talk to Jacob Pugh. That guy, That guy was gold last year. The one time we got him, when he just shut it all down and said that nobody's, people have quit in games and all the stuff he said that we all knew, but Jimbo would never admit to. Jacob Pugh kind of just laid it all on the line, said some guys aren't trying as hard, some aren't bought in, all that good stuff. So I'd ask him, really what happened? Because he was there for the 2014 season. He played on that team when things were still going well. So he has a really unique perspective, but not, he wouldn't know about Taggart. So I think, I think Lamonta Taylor would be a good guy to talk to about that. Maybe one of the O-linemen, a couple of the O-linemen. They would be honest to a point. Again, you get it. You're not. It's not just us having a conversation. He knows he's being recorded, so he might be a little cautious in some of the answers. But yeah, man, I think that's where you get the players could give you a good feel for what just the differences. And not always. Not everything Jimbo did was awful. He did a lot of really good things, and his program. The way he carried himself, the way he lined up the structure of his program worked at Florida State for a while until it didn't. So it's not like you can say it was all bad or you just can't win when you're screaming at your quarterback. That happened and he won a lot. But I think it went stale, and I'd like to know maybe a Derek Nottie would have a really good idea, or a Matthew Thomas who actually played on the 2013 team, or Nate Andrews would be a great player. I'm more interested in where it felt like it went stale. You know what I mean? Because these guys are all going to be excited about Taggart, I think. But when did they feel like something started missing? When something was missing, and could you feel it? Was it tangible, or was it just going to games and giving up 63 points to Louisville, where you realized, okay, this program isn't anywhere close to where it was 2 years ago?
If you had to gander a guess, do you think they would date it to 2014, or do you think it would be post-Jameis?
I think it's 2014, man. I think that's when, and I haven't read Ira's thing. I don't know what he wrote, but I think that's when the majority of that team was very entitled. And I think that started from the head coach. I think he could have nipped that in the bud, and he didn't. And they didn't play hard until they had to. I think that was and that can be a tumor. That can be a cancer that gets into a program, a culture where, it's not a switch that you hit on and off. Alabama, they don't really go through the motions that much. Clemson doesn't really go through the motions that much. Now, they play poorly at times, but it doesn't usually seem like it's just a lack of effort. In 2014, you can't look at that team and all the players that were on that defense and how bad it performed for such long stretches and think that they were giving it their all, that they had the pride to go out and dominate teams. I just think something was lost there. They were all, after the 2013 season, it felt like they were all counting down the days until they were going to go to the combine. And that's not how you win a bunch of football games in college. You got to have guys that are bought in. You got to have guys that believe in each other, that care for each other, that care if they win games, and practice like it. Obviously in the games, in the third quarter when they're down by 14 points, they're mad and they want to win because they're competitors. But are they practicing as hard as they can on Tuesday and Wednesday? I think that's the difference. That's where the connection was lost somewhere, where they never really looked all that prepared on either side of the ball. And I think part of that started in 2014. And I know they won all those games, but it's pretty ridiculous how many of those games came down to the final couple of plays or a few plays here and there where they had so much talent, so much more talent than other teams. I mean, they beat Boston College by 3 points. That's crazy. They were down 16-0 to Miami. That wasn't a good Miami team. So, and we all celebrated at the time, the cardiac kids. They showed they can win. They have poise when it counts. They find a way to come back. But they were down 24-7 to NC State. You could go on and on. They made it a game with Oklahoma State after getting up 17-0. They just played relaxed all the time until it was time, third or fourth quarter, it was winning time, and they'd go win the game. But I do think, to answer that question in a very long, wordy way, yes, I think 2014 is when the program started to deteriorate. Something lost, something magical. That 2013 team was magical, and it didn't carry over to 14 at all, even though a lot of the players were the same.
If you read the interview that David Hale of ESPN.com conducted with Willie Taggart would give you the clues. He would tell you to follow the paper trail. He would say to look at the transcripts. That's the one common thing that Taggart says lets him. That's his barometer of when he knows that his program is making the turn for the better. He actually says it's when the academic side of things. Now that to me sounds a little bit like when coaches talk about.
That's not completely out of left field, because it does show a commitment to caring about the things you're supposed to care about, to caring about being eligible, to caring about being a good student, to making the most out of your time at a university. Obviously it's more important what they do on the football field, and I think that's a little bit of coach speak. But I do think the fact that he wants his kids to sit in the front row, that he wants them to be attentive, that they're going to send coaches to the classes to make sure they're there, not GAs, because quite frankly, what's a GA going to tell Jimbo? Hey, man, starting linebacker wasn't in chemistry today. All right, whatever. That was and I'm just telling you from the things you hear inside the program, that was the overwhelming sentiment the last few years, is it didn't really matter. And there is to the head coach. It did at the beginning, but somewhere along the way it didn't. The off the field stuff didn't matter. I heard a story that they left the plane a mess when they would get off their charter flight, because they had the same charter plane all the way for every road game. They take the same plane, and they would leave it a mess. And it's just little things, little respectful things, to be respectful to your teachers, to be respectful for the people that serve you drinks on a plane. Well, not alcoholic drinks, you know what I mean?
Ginger ale.
But all that stuff, I think, it can go back to the top. And, just somewhere along the way, there was a disconnect where they didn't treat themselves they didn't treat people with respect.
Starts at the top.
Yeah,
at the top,
and he
right?
didn't. He didn't treat a lot of people with respect there at the end. I'm sure that's something that will be written about in the next 2 days of the Jimbo Chronicles. Oh man, I was waiting for the sound effect.
It takes a while. I gotta go back and forth between the tabs and stuff.
Sorry, man. I tried to set you up.
You did. It was awesome. It was awesome.
But yeah, so I think that story that was relayed when Taggart met his first or second day on campus, when he met with the compliance people. And I think the head of many of the departments, and told them his plan to hold the students accountable, to make sure coaches came to class, and to be, there was going to be open communication between the staff and him, and they all stood up and cheered. Well, man, that tells you all you need to know about what was happening with the last regime. That just tells you everything. They wouldn't have reacted like that if that was the norm. So, again, it's not that big. It's college football, man, and I get it. They're athlete students. It's not the other way around. Some of them are just athletes. They're here to get to the NFL. I get all that, but at the same time, treat people with respect. Take their time seriously. Don't waste their time. And I think that's the message he's trying to push with his emphasis on academics.
Playing with house money is always easy, but when it's actually your skin in the game, it's a little bit more different. Let's see if that analogy can apply to the next segment. When we come right back here on ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee, it's Wake Up War Chant.
You're locked in to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
I'm Aslan. He is Corey Clark, senior writer for WarChant.com. This is Wake Up War Chant on ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee. You know all that. The show brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. Go check them on out over in Collegetown, Central Township, Madison Social. 3 great options. I think I might go to one of those for brunch on Sunday, so maybe I can report back on Monday's program how that goes. I was thinking about the whole Tinder thing. I think I can't take a Tinder date to those 3 locations because they're too good. They're too good. You have to be Team Aslan for me to take you there. I can't just take any girl off the block there. You have to be committed to me for me to take you to one of the 3 fine locations of For the Table Hospitality. Am I setting the bar too high?
What is the normal places like an Arby's?
More of a Chick-fil-A guy?
What do you go? What's the first Tinder date normally?
Just a beer somewhere, right?
Oh, okay.
If they're of age, of course. I'm just kidding. By the way, I wonder, like, people need to, like, so what? I'm 35. Like, be honest, guys. I know, so half of you are probably married, so it disgusts you the fact that I could even think about dating a girl in her 20s. But, like, what is not totally abhorrent in your mind? Let me know.
Man, there's the rule. The rule is that you
half
take your
plus 7?
Yeah, you divide it in half, and then you add 7. So, what do you, that's
20,
like 25.
25. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you get away with the 23 or 24.
But there's just no 25-year-old girls in Tallahassee, though, Corey. There's
a few. There's a few. Because that's a slippery slope when you get to 2020. Why not a freshman? Why not 18? I mean, it's just, I feel like it's a little, it's a
You're making sense.
A twinge young.
You ain't lying. You ain't lying, Corey. You ain't lying. All right. To my analogy, metaphor I was going to talk about, again, we have to rely on this Magna Carta story done by David Hale of ESPN.com because we haven't been able to talk to Willie here in a few weeks. But anyhow, Willie has a good sort of sense of humor about things, made a joke about, this is old hat to him. He might have to actually get involved in a search firm one of these days to help people find coaches since he keeps going from job to job. When you're dating somebody, like at first, I've never been married, so obviously I can't speak to that. But like, when you're dating somebody at first, like the whole honeymoon phase, I don't know, like if it's, you're kind of loose and carefree or whatever, right? Like if it doesn't work out after 2 weeks, it's like whatever, right? I don't know if you're showing I don't want to say you're not showing your true self, but is it, I don't know, I don't want to say cause for concern either. I need to figure out the words I want to say before I open my mouth. It's part of my job here. But, Willie has been at places where I think, even at Oregon, I don't know, maybe to a certain degree at Oregon, he thought he could stay there for a while. But I'm sure when he went to Western Kentucky, it was like, listen, this is my alma mater. Let me get them back up and running. It'll make me feel good. Plus, it'll probably help my career and I can go somewhere else. And he goes to USF, and then obviously it's being close to home, but you want to get that Power 5 job. And then you get to Oregon, and I don't know if you maybe sit in that office and look at how gorgeous it is because of the amount of money and opulence that Phil Knight puts into that program, and you think to yourself you're set, or if you always still have that itch to go somewhere bigger and better. But, the fact is, like, he's married now. I mean, like, Florida State, that's his dream job. There's no we're not thinking, there's no to another job. There's no Texas Tech is not going to be a more alluring job. Lubbock is not going to appeal to him the way that the College Station appealed to the other guy. So is that a good thing? Like, will we see a sort of a flair or a work ethic out of Willie Taggart that maybe his previous employers didn't see? Or is that going to be more of a difficult thing, would you assume, for him to reconcile? Because, like, will he put more pressure on himself? Because if this is the destination job, then there's no, 8-5 could be good at Oregon, but 8-5 here is going to get people talking, and not in a good way.
Well, yeah, so you're asking if you think he's going to put more pressure on himself?
I guess, yeah, more or less.
Well, man, I know when you were talking just then, you said he went to Western Kentucky. This is my alma mater. This will help me get a bigger job. Man, Western Kentucky could have ended his career. I mean, that place is not a football school, and they had lost like 20-something straight games. And, that's a place where, coaching careers can go to die. I mean, what if he goes 1-10, 1-10, 3-8? Who's going to hire him? So there was pressure there to turn it around just for his own self-preservation. So it wasn't just I'm going to go there and turn it around in a couple of years. This will be easy, like maybe a basketball coach going to Tulsa back in the day when everybody that coached at Tulsa for 3 years, including Steve Robinson, ends up at a big Power 5 school, and Tubby Smith and all those, and Nolan Richards. Literally everybody that coached at Tulsa got a big job after that. It wasn't like that, and neither really was South Florida. I mean, I think there was pressure on both those places because I don't think Willie Taggart, I don't think he's not Lane Kiffin. He couldn't have failed somewhere and then gotten another chance as a head coach. Certainly not at a Power 5 conference. So I think there was pressure there. And so he's felt it, which I think should be a good thing for Florida State. I know a lot gets made that it's his fourth job in 9 years or whatever it is, but there was pressure at Western Kentucky and South Florida to turn those things around, because if he didn't, he might not have ever been a head coach again. He got a shot, and so he did turn them around. So that's a good thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess you'd want him to put pressure on himself because, I mean, there is pressure. I mean, you're at Florida State. And I think the other side of the coin, like you mentioned, is that unless he's interested in becoming an NFL coach, I genuinely don't know where he'd want to go. like where else he'd want to go. You know, this is a state school. It's where he's from. He grew up a Florida State fan. It is a great job. It is a great job. So I don't know where else he'd be looking to go. I don't know who could woo him unless they paid him $12 million a year. So, you know, with that being said, I think that I feel like he thinks this is a perfect job for him. And I think he feels like he's going to knock it out of the park. And he was he would never say this publicly, but I think he thinks he was a great hire. We'll see if he's right, but he thinks he was a great hire.
Like, can you push kids to the degree that you want to push kids when you know you're probably going to have to be there for 5 years? Like, you can redshirt a kid and you're like, yeah, I mean, shoot, by the time I'm out of here, this kid's then he'll finally be ready to actually do something. But in the meantime, I'm just going to break him down so somebody can build him back up.
Don't you think, though, I think it would be kind of refreshing for him to have that kind of plan where he doesn't feel like he's got to play kids early to get to 8 or 9 wins and to, I mean, obviously he's going to try to get to 8 or 9 wins, but he's not trying to climb up a ladder anymore.
By November.
Yeah, but he's not trying to climb up a ladder anymore. He's to the top of the ladder. So I would think that's kind of a refreshing change of pace for him. Because even at Oregon, yeah, man, he had no idea. Oregon's not a great job. It's a good job. But there's 20 schools you'd leave Oregon for. Florida State is one of them. Man, maybe 15. But Florida State's one of them. There aren't 4 schools you'd leave Florida State for. So I just think he's at the top of the ladder now, and he's going to do whatever it takes to stay there. And he can think more long-term than maybe he could at a place like Western Kentucky or South Florida where you had to play all those guys so early to get them experience. He has the luxury now of letting kids, again, there's pressure because there's pressure, and it's Florida State. But I don't think he's going to be putting any more pressure on himself than I just don't think I don't think pressure will dictate the way he runs his program.
Pressure makes diamonds, right, brother?
That's right, my man.
It's March 8th, and we just spent about 30 minutes talking about the head football coach of Florida State in spring football that hasn't even started.
I'm worn out.
So, I mean, we did what we could, folks. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the work week for you. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. It's Wake Up or Chant. The Jeff Cameron Show coming up at 3 o'clock.
These recruiting updates are nothing but fluff.
Are you wasting your time again on free blogs and social media to get the scoop on FSU recruiting?
Yeah, it's all bait and switch. Get me excited with a headline, but get nothing in return. You're on warchant.com. What's really going on with FSU recruiting?
Could be another top 5 class, but for the real scoop, you'll need to get your own War Chant subscription.
What's it cost?
Free. There's a 30-day trial offer. Just sign up and you'll get full access through signing day. And nobody has more accurate and timely information on recruiting than warchant.com.
You know I like free. Sign me up. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole source.